Hi everyone and welcome back to my top 500 games. We are currently at number 257, which is Switchball. This is a game that I got on the PS3. It's a download game, and the basics of this game that I can describe is that you play as this marble and you just have to get to the end of each stage. Now what makes this game stand out and what makes it interesting is that, well, first of all, it's very physics based, so you've got very distinct weight to your movement and you have a very distinct sound effects for when the marble drops from ledges and stuff like that. But also you can enter these machines which will change the marble that you are, and you will gain different attributes. The biggest example I can think of really is the heavy ball that you can become. You enter the machine and you become this larger, stronger but heavier ball, meaning that you can push things further because of course you're stronger. But the disadvantage to this is that also you can't climb slopes as high, or you can't move as fast either. And so every different type of marble that you can change into comes with its own pros and cons, and you have to use this information to solve the different puzzles. Also, there's sort of like a time trial feature to this game as well, where you will get rewards based on how fast you complete the level, and it got to the point where it was too hard for me to get the higher rewards. I don't know what I did wrong, or if I did anything wrong, I just wasn't good enough, I don't know. Number 256 is Gym Power. Now this is a game that I played on the Amiga, but is also available on the Mega Drive. Although it does look distinctively different on each version, as in, not just the graphics look different, but the main character himself looks different. I actually didn't manage to get too far into this game because it does get really hard. It's one of those one touch and you're dead types of games. So you get hit by anything and you will lose a life and you will appear not too far back. So it's kind of like health, I suppose, with one life, but rather, no, you get hit and you die and you get walked back just a tiny bit, but you do get walked back a bit and you just gotta keep going. Main mechanics, as you'd expect, running and jumping. You can also shoot, and that's how you defeat the different enemies. But once again, this is one of those very precision-based platformers, so you've got to make sure that you land on the platform precisely rather than working up a large momentum and covering a large amount of space. But with the one-hit kills you nature, you've also got to be very careful with the enemies, because the enemies can be very fast. They can run around back and forth very fast, and if you run too far ahead, you might have like this horse enemy that will just run straight into you and kill you straight up. So you've got to be careful, making sure that you shoot enough, that you shoot fast enough, you shoot in the right direction. And you can also get these different power-ups that will increase the amount of bullets that you shoot and how many directions that you shoot in, and also the size of the bullets that will help you defeat those enemies faster as well. You do have some very precise platforming. For example, you will also have these platforms that will constantly open and close, so you've got to time it just right so that you land on it whilst it's closed, so you can like jump off it again straight after, and just make sure that you are very precise with everything, but it's very easy to just get hit over and over and then get a game over very quickly. Once you've completed the first stage, you have a boss which I have beaten before, but it's really hard. You're basically flying through the air on this jetpack, and there are less levels where you do fly through the air on the jetpack. And I also want to point out, the music for the first stage in the Amiga version is very nice. Number 255 is Monkey Island, and this is another game I've played on the Amiga. Now, this is an adventure game, and I did say that there wasn't going to be any more purely story-based games on this list. And I've got to say, I don't believe this is a purely story-based game, because even though it is all story-based, you know, you are just going through a story, there is quite a bit of thinking involved, and you do actually have to think about what you're going to interact with things. It's not like a Telltale game where you'll just have all of the answers laid in front of you and you've got to select the right one. No, you've got to think about what you're going to use on what. But this was my first one of these games, and I think this was the first game I played where there was an actual story that carried on. My dad actually had a really fun time watching me play this because he really got into it as well. Not playing it, but watching me play it. And the big thing that sticks out to me is just memories of the early game, because I got to a point where I got stuck and I couldn't continue any further. And I will explain that when I get to it. But the parts that I remember that stick out to me is the part where you're in the tavern at the start of the game and you talk to those three pirates, and they each require you to perform a different goal. I remember you have to, for one of those things, you have to go to a circus and get shot out of a cannon, and to do that you need a pot from the kitchen. And I remember my friend Matthew was the one that actually told me about how you can get the fish from the plank of wood outside if you stepped on it to make the bird fly away, and I would never have thought of that. I also remember there was a part in this, it was like a rich house, it was like this gallery, and I think you had to steal a painting or something, but you did actually grab this thing and this guy threw you in the river and you had this thing strapped to you, and if you didn't make it out in time you would die. The game would just end because you would lose. So what you had to do is, the thing that you were tied to, you had to pick it up, and the first time that I played, for some reason I didn't think to pick up the thing that I was tied to. I was looking all over for other stuff, but yeah, you can pick it up. I remember the second time I got to that point and I realised that I could pick it up, I was quite amazed. It was like, oh, you can pick it up. It was sort of like a, why didn't I think to do that? It seems so simple. But the part that I got stuck on, and I think that this is the part that has become rather popular, is the part with all the sword fights. Basically, you have to win a sword fight against the Grand Master, who is very good at sword fighting. And the way that you defeat the Grand Master is that you have to train against all of these other little pirates that are relatively a lot easier. And every time I tried fighting the Grand Master, I would always lose. All the time. Just every single time I would lose. Now, here's the way that it works. You fight these people, you have sword fights with these people, and they hurl insults at you. And you basically have to hear those insults, and you can learn different insults back because you learn the insults that you hear. You have to give the correct comeback to their insult. So, for example, if they say something and you just say, oh yeah, then that isn't a very good insult. It's not a very good comeback, so that doesn't count very much in your favour. But if someone says something and you say something that matches, then that works in your favour. Now, my friend Matthew did actually get past this point. He didn't explain how, he just told me that he did. But maybe it was just me, but I did not think for a second that what you said had anything to do with it. I tried all sorts. I tried clicking the mouse really fast. I tried clicking on the swords. I tried not clicking at all. I tried pressing different keys on the keyboard. I did not understand. I think I just didn't understand this concept of wit when I was at that age. I don't know. I just didn't understand. And so I never got past that point. It just seemed like it was impossible. Like, I don't know how you're supposed to beat this Grandmaster. Number 254 is Alex Kidd in Shinobi World. Now, this is the Alex Kidd equivalent of the original Shinobi game that was on the Master System, and this is also on the Master System, and it's basically the same game in concept, apart from it's an Alex Kidd game, and I think this was one of the very first Master System games I got, even though I didn't really get that many, but I think I got this the same Christmas, possibly, that I got my Master System converter. This was the Christmas where my uncle was saying to me, what's the point, you've got a Mega Drive, and also, he was the one that gave me his Mega Drive, because it was originally his. Yeah, this is also the same uncle who I played Lego Racers with and all these different like racing games with, and who was better than me at Tetris, my uncle Darren. This is all the same person, by the way. But Alex Kidd in Shinobi World was more distinctively like a platform game than Shinobi was. I don't know if it was easier, I'm going to guess that it was easier, but it was the same level design. You had the same basic levels, you had the same bosses, you had the same music, and I really liked the music for the first level in this game. But because it was Alex Kidd, it had more precise jumping and more precise platforming. Also, you could do this technique where you could climb on like a post and you could spin round it to shoot off in one particular direction. And I also really like the graphics of this game as well. Everything's so like crisp and clean, and everything's so like very clear as to what you can jump on and what you can't, and it's very hard to describe, but I know exactly what I'm talking about. Did I ever complete this game? I think I have, but I can't confirm that, so I'm not going to say that I have or I haven't. And also, just to get talking about the Master System itself for a bit. The Master System, the controller didn't have a pause button. The pause button was on the console, so I remember having to press the pause button on this Master System converter as opposed to being able to press the start button on the Mega Drive, which I originally found out because my friend Matthew had a Master System, but I'll be getting to that later. Number 253 is a game called Devil Dice. Now this is a PS1 game and it's a, I suppose, party game. It's kind of like a multiplayer game where each character is this little baby dressed up as a devil, different colours, one for each player. And it's a rather creative game this, because I don't think I've seen anything like it. But the way that it worked is that you have all these dice laid around on this level, and you step on the dice, you start on the dice, and you move in the different directions to roll them around. And then if you can get dice with certain numbers on them on top, and get that many of that lot together, you get points equal to that number squared. So, say for example, if you match 2 dice next to each other that both have the number 2 facing up, you will get 4 points. And say if you get 3 threes together, you'll get 9 points. And if you get 6 sixes together, you'll get 36 points. And as you get them together, they sink into the ground, and whilst they're sinking into the ground, you can move the dice around to connect with them to build up a chain. So say you've got 4 fours together, you get 16 points, and they start sinking. If you get another 4 next to those sinking 4s, then you will get an extra 4 points on top of that, because you will build up a combo. And the winner is basically whoever gets the most points at the end of the round. Now, the ones are unique because you can't just get 1-1, because that would really be strange. But if you connect a 1 to any sinking dice, then all of the ones will sink and you will get all of those points. It's got a very strong, competitive, puzzly, just a very strange sort of theming to it, which is very interesting, and it's very nice. But also there's this puzzle mode where you are presented with a problem and you have to solve it within so many moves. So it'll be like, here are the dice, you have 4 moves, get rid of all these dice. So you have those puzzles to solve. But you'll also have different types of dice as well. So you might have rock solid ones that don't move, or icy ones that slide. I don't remember exactly the different types of dice that there are. I remember there's like this wooden dice. I don't remember what the significance of it is, but that I found very interesting. Number 252 is Bomberman Tournament. This is the Game Boy Advance version of Bomberman, basically. I do remember I enjoyed the different level variety in this version of Bomberman. I'm not going to explain the rules of Bomberman again because I already have a couple of times in previous entries. But what I do remember is that in this particular game, that there was a level which was basically Total Power. I don't remember its name, but there was a level where there was no blocks there and everyone started completely maxed out with full power blasting bombs. And it had nice level variety as well. But the main reason that this game stuck out to me was because of the quest mode. You actually had a story mode in the Bomberman game. It wasn't just playing in these arenas over and over again. You did have a different story mode which you could go through and progress and find different things, and it was interesting. You could explore new areas and stuff. But aside from going around and exploring and finding different items and different paths around different areas and different enemies in different dungeons, you also got these different monsters which were also interesting because they each had their own ability. Like, I remember the first one, I believe it was the first one, allowed you to teleport to different areas that you had been to before, sort of like a fast travel feature. And you could get other ones as well, and they also had all of their own abilities. You could also compete with these different monsters in this boxing ring, and it was sort of like kind of a pseudo RPG in that regards, but that wasn't really too significant. But it was still interesting to have this sort of adventure mode, or quest mode rather, to be able to find all these different things around this world, and I did play this game quite a bit because of that. Number 251 is Forza Motorsport 3, and number 250 is Forza Motorsport 2. So this is another clump here, and this is basically both of the Forza Motorsport games that I have played on the Xbox 360. I originally played Forza Motorsport 2 before the third one, and I generally tend to find that with racing games, you can't go too wrong. You're not going to have a racing game that's just flat out awful. I find it very hard to find racing games that are just flat out awful. But since 2 and 3, we've had like Forza Horizon and all that, and I've not played those. But what I did like about these games is just what I like about many games is the fact that you can take part in these events and you can level up, you can get money and you can upgrade things. Now, Forza Motorsport 3 has a really stupid rewind mechanic and I hate it. The whole thing of if you crash you can rewind back time so far and I think that's just stupid. I don't know why they did that. And you also gathered points together based on different makes of cars. So if you used Ford cars, then you would level up your Ford compatibility. And I think that, this all ties into the whole car porn, I suppose, where it's always like, ooh, look at the bonnet. Ooh, look at this ST721 steering wheel thing. I don't know any of that stuff, so I'm just making it up. But you get the idea. What I liked about Motorsport 2 was that I had never played a racing game before this where you start off so weak. Like, sometimes you'd see a corner like in the far distance and you would have to slow down in advance to prepare to turn the corner. It was really strange, but I liked it. It took a while to get used to, but I liked it. And we have passed the halfway point. Usually I would have made a notice at the point of passing the halfway point, but we were in the middle of a clump, so you can understand why I couldn't. But yeah, we have just passed the halfway point in terms of amount of games, so we have just covered over half of the games. There are now fewer games coming up than there has been gone, and that's quite crazy, especially considering the fact that that's the bottom part of the list, and now we have the next part of the list. But we will continue on with our second half of games when we get back next time because I am going to end this part here. So thank you to everyone for watching. I will see you all next time.